Let's turn to the latest on the world's journey to Mars. A spacecraft from the United Arab Emirates has entered into orbit around the red planet, making it the first Arab nation to do so. The unmanned craft is now circling Mars to gather data on its atmosphere. Now, Jim Stemman reports from Dubai.
This has been a $200 million project that's been years in the making, and one the country hopes will inspire the next generation to reach for the stars in what's been the first Arab mission to Mars. The whole probe, which left Earth in July 2020 after several delays, entered its most critical stage early evening on Tuesday local time. This as the spacecraft successfully completed its orbit insertion, a highly complex mission with a 50% chance of success. So what happens next? Well, the probe will circulate the second smallest planet in the solar system and send back critical data about its atmosphere.
So we'll be getting understandings of the lower atmosphere and the upper atmosphere, and that requires spectra from infrared spectrometer that we have on board. We also have visible images of Mars, and at the same time we also measure the hydrogen and oxygen halo of Mars using ultraviolet. So it's a mix of data and also images that scientists use in conjunction to get their scientific discoveries and observations.
This mission is part of a much wider strategy around space exploration, which also include an ambitious national effort to develop expertise in this area after having already sent the first Emirati astronaut to space back in 2019. The UAE, which has a population of roughly 10 million, is heavily reliant on expat workers and lacks the scientific and industrial base of the big spacefaring nations, something it hopes to change with this now successful mission to Mars. The government has launched a space center to oversee this project at a time when the UAE is investing heavily into building a knowledge-based economy. It also has plans for a Mars settlement in the next century.
And now let's take a look at China's first Mars exploration mission. Tianwen-1 will initiate the braking sequence when the spacecraft approaches Mars. It's expected to be captured by the planet around the Lunar New Year's Eve. So after more than 200 days in flight, Tianwen-1 will finally reach its orbit around Mars. From launch pad to landing, let's take a look at what Tianwen-1 has accomplished so far and what lies ahead.
China's Mars exploration mission was established in 2016. 4 years later, in April 2020, it was given the name Tianwen-1. The name Tianwen means questions to heaven in English, and it was numbered 1 as it's the first of China's missions to other planets. Carried by a Long March 5 rocket, the Mars probe was launched on July 23, 2020. It includes an orbiter, a lander, and a rover. After more than 2 months of travel, the probe sent back its first deep space selfie with the Chinese flag on the National Day, October 1st. It also coincided with the Mid-Autumn Festival. Several tasks have been completed during the journey, including capturing an image of the Earth and the Moon, 4 orbital corrections, and a deep space maneuver. On February 5th, the probe captured its first image of the red planet after a journey of nearly 200 days. Tianwen-1 will spend 2 to 3 months orbiting and surveying potential sites for a landing in May. The rover will then explore the red planet for about 90 days. It will examine the Martian soil and surface material, as well as its atmosphere and climate. Zhao, CGTN.
Now, for more on Tianwen-1, my colleague Yang Zhao is standing by in the studio for more answers. Hello there, Yang Zhao. Well, the name Tianwen actually comes from an ancient Chinese film asking about the secrets of the universe. So today, when we are asking questions to the universe or about the universe, what cutting technologies are being used?
Well, Donna, I'm pretty sure there are a lot of things worth mentioning about their technologies. But given that Tianwen-1 will be ready to enter the orbit of the Mars soon, I think we can start with the instruments now being used. So let's check out this. Well, this is the first image of Mars snapped by Tianwen-1 a few days ago as the spacecraft makes its final approach. This grayscale image was captured at a distance of 2.2 million kilometers. It is clear enough to see some of the most iconic spots on the red planet, which demonstrates the powerful high-resolution camera is working properly. The camera needs help, though. There is an optical navigation sensor that acts as the eye of the spacecraft. It searches for and captures the destination in deep space where there is no beidou or GPS to help navigate. This sensor can recognize Mars from 10 million kilometers away and order the Tianwen to point to it. Another thing I want to mention is that all instruments have been pre-programmed to be able to carry out self-check procedures to make sure they're ready anytime, anywhere. After all, for such long-distance space travel, the robot has to be rely on itself. Don't it?
Right, and landing comes after entering the orbit. Can you tell us more about that process?
Well, that's right. The orbiter will begin imaging the main candidate's landing site within the huge impact basin of Utopia Planitia, preparing for a landing attempt around May. And when everything is ready, separation of orbiter and lander will begin. The lander will start to dive into the thin atmosphere of Mars all by itself. That's because any instruction from Earth needs more than 10 minutes to reach the robot. But there's just about 7 minutes before its touchdown on Mars. If the solar-powered rover lands safely, a comprehensive study on Mars will start. There are 13 instruments for surveying, 6 fitted on the rover and 7 on the orbiter. The rover will investigate the composition of surface soil and potential water ice distribution with its subsurface exploration radar instrument. It also needs to collect atmospheric data to document climate change. And meanwhile, the orbiter will map the surface and characterize its geological structure with medium and high resolution camera and a sounding radar, and make other detections with magnetometer and particle detectors. Back to you.
Very, very busy trip for the rover indeed. Thank you very much, Yang Zhao, for the introduction of Tianwen. Now, for more about the landing for Tianwen-1, we are now joined by Professor Yang Yuguang from the China Aerospace Science and Industry Corporation. Welcome to Global Watch, Professor Yang. First of all, please explain for our viewers why the orbit insertion is critical.
Well, this is a really risky task because you see that when the Tianwen-1 is approaching the Mars, it is in a hyperbolic orbit. So it means that when it's approaching to the nearest point, then if we don't have orbit insertion, it will leave the Mars, and then it will return to an orbit circling around the Sun. So the next time meeting with Mars will be several years later or even several decades later. So there is only one chance. And moreover, you see that this procedure must be performed very accurately. The position must be very accurate, and also the delta V we provided must be also very accurate. And also the time we perform this operation must be very accurate. And the difficulty also comes from distance. You see that now the Tianwen-1 is about 200 million kilometers from the Earth, and the time delay between the communication is more than 10 minutes. So the procedure must be performed in a very highly autonomous mode.
Right, it seems to be very fortunate, at least for us, to see this rover being sent into the universe and approach Mars. What's the most difficult part of the whole mission then?
Of course, the most difficult part is descending and landing. This is the most dangerous part for all spacecraft to landing on the Martian surface. You see, until now, the human being, only the United States can land on the Martian surface and perform scientific research. This is because you see that the atmosphere of the Mars is has a very low density, but the heating must be protected. And also, we must use the heating shield, the supersonic parachute, and also the retro rocket engines. All these procedures must be in a very harmonic mode, and also the operation must be very accurate. So it is the most complicated landing, and many other countries failed in this procedure.
All right, thank you very much for the explanation, Professor Yang Yuguang from China Aerospace Science and Industry Corporation. And now, the United States is the third country which began missions to Mars in July, taking advantage of a period when Earth and Mars are closest. NASA's Perseverance Mars rover is set to land on the red planet on February the 18th and will search for signs of ancient microbial life. All right, let's get back to our guest, Yang Yuguang, for more. Now, so compared with other countries, what's the most distinctive feature of Tianwen? We've seen the UAE and also US approaching the Mars as well.
As Yang has mentioned, we combine an orbiter, a lander, and a rover mission together. So this time is the first time in history that a country performs this 3 steps in only one mission. You see, usually during the past, such as the U.S. and the former Soviet Union, they first will have a flyby or an orbital mission first, and then they can get the data necessary for the landing. But this time we combine them together. There are also challenges on the engineering goal. But besides, if we can be successful, we can have both the overall data and the statistics of the Martian surface, such as the distribution of minerals and the ice or water ice, and also we can get the details of the data in the Utopia planet here. We can get the evidence of the past or current life forms, and also get the details of the minerals and the chemicals. We have six payloads on board the rover, and also we have the instrument to monitoring the weather on the Martian surface.
Professor, do you see the 3 countries, UAE, China, and US, cooperating on Mars exploration?
Yes, actually speaking, this time, as I mentioned, the magnetic magnetometer to measure the magnetic field of the Mars is provided by Austria. And also we get support from the European countries in the whole mission. So we can have a very deep cooperation with European countries. And also, like the UAE, the HOPE mission, the HOPE is assembled in US and also launched by Japan. And also the Perseverance has some international cooperations. I think in the future, we can cooperate in this field because Mars is destiny and is a very important object to study by all human beings and by all space-capable nations.
Thank you very much, Professor Yang Yuguang.